Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another What's for Dinner video. I am so excited to share this one with you guys. Today I am going to be sharing 4 30-minute meals from Rachael Ray. She is definitely my favorite TV chef or chef on the Food Network. I've been watching her since her first 30-minute meals show, and I have many of her cookbooks. I actually think I have all of her cookbooks. I've been collecting them for years. So in today's video, we are going to make her You Won't Be Single for Long vodka cream pasta. I've made this once, but it's been a long time ago, and it's really good if you're looking for a simple pasta dish. I'm also going to be making a lemon tarragon chicken with rice, a tuna orzo salad, and then last, an Oklahoma style smack burger. Those were really good. And so I'll also be sharing what we thought of all of the recipes. So let's go ahead and get started. One other thing I wanted to mention is that I'm also going to be sharing a fun dessert recipe for red velvet cupcakes with you as well. I also wanted to take a minute and let you guys know that today my video is in collaboration with Carol from The Simple Mama here on YouTube. I first discovered Carol's channel when I was watching What's for Dinner videos and found out that she is a full-time working mom like myself, and so I initially gravitated towards her channel because of that. But she shares the best What's for Dinner videos and recipes. She also shares grocery hauls and other cook and clean with me videos. I love watching her What's for Dinner videos because not only are her recipes really good, but they're also simple and delicious and easy to make after a long day at work. In her video today, she's also going to be sharing a What's for Dinner with some recipes from Rachael Ray and the Food Network as well. So I will make sure to link both her video and her channel in the description box below. Make sure that you go on over there, give her a comment, send her some love. I know that you will enjoy her video just as much as mine. Okay, so we're going to get started with the You Won't Be Single for Long vodka cream pasta. This is a classic Rachael Ray recipe, and I think I read somewhere that it was actually one of her most popular recipes from her original 30-minute meals show. For a side for this, I'm going to be making some roasted green beans, and then I'm also heating up some meatballs that I had in the freezer to go along with this too. You could totally make this a vegetarian dish if you wanted to. My family is not too keen always on the vegetarian dishes, so I like to always have some kind of a meat or a protein just to keep the troops happy. For today, I'm using fresh green beans, and so you just saw me there trimming off the ends of those. I'm going to wash them in my OXO salad spinner with some really cold water and a splash of vinegar just to loosen any dirt. If you are new to my channel, you might not know that I wash all of my produce in my beloved salad spinner. It's great for soaking produce, and it has a large capacity. I'll link the one that I have down below. You will not regret that purchase, and it will be a staple in your kitchen for years to come. So the first thing that I'm going to do for the pasta is get started on chopping up some shallot and some garlic. If you don't have any shallot on hand, or if you can't find any in your grocery store, you can definitely just use regular onion. You could use a red onion or a white onion, or you could even use the whites of green onions. Whatever you have on hand will work just fine. So I'm mincing up 2 of those, and I'm going to get that into my skillet. And next I will chop up my garlic. It is really important to have fresh garlic for this recipe, just because the sauce itself is very simple, and really the only flavors in it are the tomato, onion, garlic, and then a little bit of cream. So if you don't have any fresh garlic on hand, you can try using the minced garlic in the jar. I don't usually purchase that, so I'm not too familiar with it, but I think that would work in a pinch as well. So I'm going to get my green beans out on a sheet tray. These are going to be roasted in the oven, and I will post this recipe, a link to it in the description box below as well. This was a new recipe for us, one that I hadn't tried. So I just have my green beans on some parchment paper. I seasoned those with olive oil, salt, and pepper. I'm also grating some lemon zest on there, and then I'm also going to juice the lemon over the green beans as well. If you guys don't have a lemon zester or a citrus zester, I have a microplane. It is fabulous. I'll link the one I have down below, as well as the citrus juicer. These are all tools that I use, at least on a weekly basis in my kitchen. You also saw me there adding some capers. This gives a great salty flavor to the green beans. And then I'm also putting some fresh garlic on those as well. I was thinking that right now with everything that is going on, a lot of us are trying to cook more out of our freezer and pantry. And this pasta dish is actually a great pantry dish because most of what is used you probably already have in your pantry, and you can substitute certain items if you don't have them. So I have my shallot and my garlic here in my skillet. I'm drizzling a little bit of olive oil in there, and then I'm just going to get those sauteing over medium heat. For this recipe, you will need a cup of vodka. I have not tried it before without the vodka. I suppose you could make it with chicken broth or white wine. Go ahead and substitute. If you don't drink alcohol or don't have alcohol in your house, I think it would probably work out just fine. So once the veggies are softened, go ahead and pour the vodka in, and then you're just going to reduce that for about 2 to 3 minutes until it is half the volume that it was when you poured it in. So once the vodka cooks down, you can go ahead and add 1 cup of chicken broth and a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I am also using this thick and hearty penne pasta. You could use any kind of pasta that you have in your pantry. This would be a great way to use up those many boxes of pasta that I know we all have in our pantry, just waiting for something like this to use it for. So the last step for the sauce is to add half a cup of cream. Definitely do not skip this step. This is really what adds kind of like a richness and a mellow flavor to the tomato sauce. Once that is in, you don't want to boil the cream, so just leave it on low heat and stir it until it's combined. The original recipe calls for fresh chopped basil, but I did not have any and I wasn't going back out to the store. So I actually used this Lighthouse dried basil and it worked out just fine. I added a little bit of extra salt, pepper, and just a pinch of sugar. Just taste it and see what you think it needs. But this tomato cream sauce is totally delicious. It's like such a simple recipe, which is kind of deceptive, but the flavor is awesome. So once my pasta was done, I drained it and I'm just going to add that to the skillet along with the sauce and stir that up, and then you can just keep that warm until it's time to eat. You guys are going to see me cooking a lot in this new skillet that I got. It's a Cuisinart stainless steel skillet. I ordered it on Amazon. It's actually not that expensive for the high quality pan that it is. I'll link it down below. I've been loving using it. It's a large capacity. It is stainless steel, so it cleans really easy, and you can definitely get that nice crust on the bottom of the pan when you saute things better than you can a nonstick skillet. So here is the completed pasta. I sprinkled it with some fresh parsley and served it with some meatballs that I had heated up. I think these were the Aidells brand Italian meatballs. Also the roasted green beans on the side. And that was dinner on this evening. Totally delicious. We all really liked it. Okay, so burgers and fries. So this original recipe is called Oklahoma style smack burgers. And I read a little bit about this online, but you guys can let me know if you're from Oklahoma or you know about these. The only reason I really wanted to make this recipe was for the sauce. It's kind of like a Thousand Island or a Big Mac sauce. So what you see me doing here is just making that ahead of time so I can get it in the refrigerator and get the flavors melding together. So in a bowl, I combined some mayo, some ketchup, some Worcestershire, and some dill relish. Now, the original recipe calls for sour cream, because did you know that Rachael Ray does not like mayonnaise? I know, right? But we like mayonnaise. And so that's why if you look at a lot of her recipes, she substitutes sour cream for mayonnaise, but I just use mayo because you know, we like mayo. We don't have an issue with it. So I went ahead and mixed that sauce up and got it in the fridge to start getting the flavors melding together. I have 1.5 pounds of ground beef in my bowl here. I just seasoned that with salt and pepper, and I'm going to shape that into patties. You definitely want to try to make these a little bit thinner because they will kind of puff up a little bit as you cook them in the skillet, and you don't want them to be so thick that they're hard to eat on your bun. One other thing I wanted to mention is that any recipes that I made in this video will all be linked in the description box below, so you guys can click on those, print them out, or save them, whatever you want to do to make them in the future. So if you look at this original recipe, this actually called for making tater tots and then sprinkling them with ranch seasoning, which I thought sounded delicious. But since we're all trying to kind of stay indoors right now and not go to the grocery store unnecessarily, I did end up just roasting up some oven fries. So I scrubbed up some russet potatoes and cut those into fry shapes, got them on a baking tray with some parchment paper. I'm drizzling them with olive oil, and then I just have some of this Chop House seasoning. It's actually from Fresh Jacks. I get a lot of my spices from them, so I'll link their site down below. I have a coupon code as well. They have some really great stuff. And once I got those all coated, I'm just going to pop them in the oven. For oven fries, I typically set my oven to 425, and I start with about 20 to 25 minutes or until the potatoes are cooked through. You basically just have to kind of judge and see how fast your oven cooks them. Don't be afraid to salt and season these really well, because potatoes by themselves are super bland, and obviously they're going to taste a lot better if you season them well. So I have my burgers there. I basically just fry those up in a skillet, and then I like to kind of hold them in the oven with the cheese on top so that they stay warm and they finish cooking through. I toasted my buns in a skillet with a little bit of butter. Here are the fries once they were done. These turned out so good and everyone loved them. I definitely would recommend that seasoning on the potatoes. And I just put them in a big bowl and set them on the table family style. So here's what my plate looked like. I had some oven fries. I had my cheeseburger with lettuce and tomato and a little bit of the sauce on top with the toasted bun. So delicious. Make that recipe ASAP. Okay, so now I'm sharing with you a bonus dessert recipe. I had a red velvet cake mix in the pantry that I wanted to use up, and I had seen before where some people made recipes of like doctored up cake mixes. So like you use extra eggs, extra oil, you add pudding mix and sour cream, and I've never tried it before, and I thought it would be interesting to try, and oh my gosh, the results were awesome. I will post the original recipe down below, but definitely try this if you haven't before. You can use any cake mix that you have on hand, and then like if you have a white cake mix, you might want to use vanilla pudding. Lemon cake mix, you can use lemon pudding, etc. You can change the flavors around as you want. But once the you can see I left a muffin in there from the night before. Oops. Once you have the cake mix beat up, you can just put those in muffin tins and bake them as you normally would. I probably overfilled these a little bit, but that's okay. They were still delicious. I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but it seems like this cake is much more like dense and moist and richer than regular cake mixes. So definitely try it out. My kids love these. So these were red velvet flavor, obviously. And so I did have a can of cream cheese frosting in the pantry as well. One thing that you want to keep in mind for canned frosting is just that you stir it really, really well before you frost your cupcakes. Otherwise, it won't be as, the frosting won't be as smooth, and it might tear your cake when you try to frost it. You don't have to make these into cupcakes. You could do a sheet cake as well, but definitely try this out. I really can't recommend it enough. I have a lemon cake mix, and I'm going to try one of those this week. Okay, so this next recipe I'm going to share is a tuna orzo salad, and this definitely tastes like spring, which I feel like we all need right now. So this is a super easy and quick recipe. Basically, I'm going to start by boiling 3 cups of chicken stock in a pan, and that's what I'm going to use to cook my orzo pasta. So I'm using a cup of orzo pasta. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically just a rice-shaped pasta. If you don't have orzo, you could definitely use any pasta that you have on hand. Watch this. I'm going to pour the pasta in my boiling water, and oh no, I had a mess. Has this ever happened to you guys before? It hasn't happened to me for a long time, but alas, yes, I poured the pasta into the boiling stock and it went all over my stove. And you know what? I just cleaned my stove prior to this, so I should have known something like that was going to happen. But anyway, we got it all cleaned up. It was fine. You want to boil that pasta until it is tender and then rinse it under cool water. To make the vinaigrette, it's super simple. I'm just using some red wine vinegar in a large bowl. I seasoned it with salt and pepper, and I'm whisking in some olive oil. The original recipe calls for tuna in olive oil, and so you would reserve the olive oil from the tuna. I don't particularly like tuna in olive oil, so I just use my own olive oil. I like the tuna in water, and that's what I had in the pantry anyway, so I went ahead and used that. This is also a great recipe to use up whatever you have in your crisper drawer. If you have like peppers, onions, cucumber, any scraps of veggies lying around in your fridge, this is a great way to use those up. So once the vinaigrette was made, I went ahead and tossed the cooled orzo in there, and I'm just going to let that sit while I chop up the veggies. So I have a red pepper, and this was in the back of my crisper drawer. It was honestly looking a little bit wrinkled, but I thought, hey, you know what? We're not going to waste anything around here, especially right now. So I chopped it up and it worked just fine. The recipe also calls for half a red onion. If you don't have a red onion on hand, you could use white or green onion. You could also use shallot. That would be really good in here as well. So I'm also going to chop up about 1/3 of a large English cucumber. I had this in my crisper drawer, and the original recipe did not call for it, but it's definitely something that I wanted to get used up. And so I put it in there, and I think the flavor goes really well with this. It's sort of like a Greek inspired dish because you have the red onion and the feta and the parsley, and any herbs that you have in your fridge, go ahead and chop those up and throw them in as well. You could use basil, parsley, dill. I ended up having dill and parsley in my crisper drawer, and so that's what I used. It turned out just fine. If you don't have fresh, go ahead and use dried. So I'm just going to give this a stir. The only thing I realized after I was mixing this and I actually got it into the fridge was that the recipe called for tomatoes. And I actually had some cherry tomatoes, but I totally forgot to add them. So when you're making this, add tomatoes if you have them. So the tuna that I'm using is from Costco. This is my favorite. It's the albacore solid white tuna in water. And I just drained 2 cans of this, and I'm going to toss it with the salad. If you don't care for tuna, you could totally leave it out of this. It would still be a really good like Greek style orzo salad. You could also add cold shrimp. You could add chicken. You could add salmon. This is really a versatile dish. And like I said, it's a great way to use up whatever you have in your pantry. So once the tuna was stirred in, I'm going to add my feta. I personally like to buy the blocks of feta cheese and cube them up. I think that they taste so much better than the crumbled feta, but whatever you have on hand will work. If you don't like feta cheese, you could leave this out, or you could add Parmesan or like maybe a cubed up mozzarella or something like that. So that's it. I'm just going to give this a stir. I do get a lot of questions about that blue rubber fork that I have, which is actually very useful. I got it at Sur La Table. I'm not sure if it's available online, but if I can find one like it, I'll link it below. It is very awesome for like making scrambled eggs and stirring up salads like this. So here is my completed salad. You could definitely serve this for dinner. It would be like a great no-cook dinner, but I am actually making this for meal prep this week. So I went ahead and put it in some containers, and I'll take that to work with me this week. Okay, so last recipe I'm going to share with you is a lemon tarragon chicken, and this turned out so good. I will definitely be making it again. I am starting by washing up my asparagus in my salad spinner with some cold water and some vinegar. We're also going to make a rice pilaf to go on the side, and I like to rinse my rice so that it comes out fluffier. So I don't know about you guys, but I have the hardest time making rice on top of the stove. It hardly ever turns out right. So I'm going to go ahead and make this rice pilaf in the Instant Pot. I have some butter in the bottom, and I'm going to pour 1/4 of a cup of orzo pasta in there, and then just get that toasted up before I put my rice in. And then I'm pouring in an equal amount of chicken stock. I'm going to stir that together, and then I'm just going to use the rice button on the Instant Pot. So this is the easiest way that I know how to make rice. If you guys don't have an Instant Pot, I'll link the one that I have down below. If you're interested in one, I would never ever give mine up for a million years. I use it multiple times a week. But if you don't have an Instant Pot, no worries. You can just make the original recipe as stated, and I'll have that linked down below. So to season the rice pilaf when it's done, we're going to need some lemon zest and some lemon juice. I wanted to have that already for when the rice was done, so I'm just kind of squeezing that into a little bowl, and I'll set that aside. So for the chicken, we're going to again use some shallot. If you don't have this, you can definitely use onion, no worries there. So I'm just going to get this chopped up along with some garlic and start that sauteing for the sauce. One thing I also wanted to mention is that if you're in the kitchen a lot and you're going to be cooking, a great chef's knife is really indispensable, and it will make your job so much easier. So I have multiple chef's knives, but I'll link the ones that I'm liking right now. They're the Xylus ones. They've stayed super sharp. Just make sure that you do not put them in the dishwasher, or they will dull quite rapidly. Okay, so roasted asparagus, super simple. I'm just putting that on a sheet tray with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and I'll roast that up while the rest of the dish is cooking. So next thing I'm going to do is get my tarragon chopped up. Sometimes this can be hard to find, especially in my area. I live in Iowa in the Midwest, and sometimes fresh herbs are hard to come by. If you don't have fresh tarragon, definitely try using the dried tarragon. Just cut it in half by about 1/3 so it's not too strong. I think it would work out just fine. So before I actually start making the sauce, I'm going to saute the chicken. So there is my trusty Cuisinart skillet with some olive oil in the bottom. I just have my chicken breast seasoned simply with salt and pepper and a little bit of garlic powder. The idea here is that you're going to saute the chicken and get it brown on both sides, remove it, make your sauce, and then return the chicken to the sauce. So it's not necessarily important that you cook it all the way through. You just want to get a nice sear on both sides. So once the chicken is done, you can go ahead and remove that to a plate. Here is my asparagus in the oven. I would recommend roasting this at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. Just check on it and see when it is done to your liking. Once the chicken is done, I'm just putting that on a plate, and I'll cover that with foil to keep it warm. And the brown bits that are in the bottom of the skillet that you sauteed your chicken in are really what's going to make the flavor for this sauce. So once the chicken is out of the pan, I'm adding a pat of butter and also my chopped shallot and garlic, and I'm just going to saute that over about medium heat until the vegetables are tender. Make sure that you watch this because the shallot and garlic will burn easily. You definitely want them to be caramelized, but you don't want them to burn. So once the veggies are cooked, you're going to deglaze your pan with some white wine, about half of a cup. If you don't cook with wine or you don't have any wine on hand, you can definitely substitute that for chicken stock. The idea here is just to pour a liquid into the pan and scrape the brown bits off the bottom. You can see there how that just sort of cleaned up the bottom of the pan, and everything, all that flavor is now incorporated into the sauce. So I'm also adding a cup of chicken stock, and then the original recipe called for creme fraiche. Again, Midwesterner here, we sometimes can't find these fancy ingredients around here. So anytime a recipe calls for creme fraiche, I substitute half cream cheese and half sour cream. It always works for me. I usually do the same thing with mascarpone. I know they're not the same things, but we have to work with what we have. So I went ahead and put the cream cheese and the sour cream into the sauce. I also added my tarragon, some lemon juice, some lemon zest, and I'm just going to simmer this over low heat until the sauce starts to thicken. Now, I did think that this sauce was a little bit thin, and so this part is optional, but I did off camera add a little bit of a slurry of a couple tablespoons of cold water mixed with some cornstarch. This is a quick trick to thicken any sauce or gravy, and it worked out just fine. You totally don't have to do this, but I wanted kind of a thicker sauce to be able to pour over the chicken and rice. So once everything is combined and your sauce is thickened, I'm just going to slide the chicken back in. Make sure that you put all those juices in the pan along with the chicken, and then just leave this over low heat and kind of let it bubble and keep warm while the chicken cooks through. Okay, so here's a look at my completed asparagus. If you've never tried cooking asparagus like this, definitely do. It's delicious. Even my kids really love it like this. Here is also my completed rice pilaf. I just fluffed that up with a fork, added the lemon juice, lemon zest, and some salt and pepper. So here is how this meal turned out. This was definitely one of our favorites. We had the rice pilaf with the chicken and the lemon tarragon sauce and the asparagus on the side. Such a nice, healthy dinner. All right, so that is going to wrap it up for this What's for Dinner video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Carol's channel. I'll have all her information linked down below. She's also going to be sharing a bunch of recipes with you for what her family had for dinner. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.